recording like now. Um,
Hi. Hola,
Hola,
¿cómo van?
¿cómo
Gente de
andan?
Latinoamérica,
¿Cómo están?
bienvenidos.
¿Cómo están? Bien, primero que nada, nos presentamos. Mi nombre es David Piña, de A 18 Minutos del Rol. Acá tenemos a Nile, que también es parte de A 18 Minutos del Rol. Y tenemos con nosotros a Andrew, a Atropos, que es el creador de Foundry VTT, bien, que es, en nuestra opinión, el mejor software y el que realmente nos cambió la vida en esto de jugar online, bien.
Hola, y muchas gracias, David.
Andrew speaks a little of Spanish.
I don't know, a little.
Yes,
I think it's a lot.
a lot, yes. So, first of all, thank you very much for agreeing to this interview, Andrew. And I'm a true fan of your work and true fan of Foundry. And thanks again for being one of our sponsors in this event. For us, it's everything, you know.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, David, and you too as well, Neil, for inviting me to join and to talk a little bit about Foundry and to share it with your community. I think it's so cool for me to get the chance to see all of these communities all over the world that are using the software that we're creating, and it's such a cool thing to have that level of connectedness and to be able to, to make something that people in an entirely different continent or an entirely different country, speaking in a different language, in different Discord servers, it's really cool to be part of that. And I don't think I get enough opportunities actually to connect with international communities that are using the software. So this is something I've been really looking forward to.
Okay.
I see a lot of Japanese in
Yeah.
Foundry.
Yeah,
A lot.
I can't speak any Japanese, so yes, no, it's very...
Me either, but it's amazing.
It is.
English is the international language, and everything it's almost in English. But Japanese, I can't believe it. It's hard. Well, I don't know. They're from video games and some fantasy MMO and something like that, but.
I think
a lot of Call of Cthulhu players in Japan, they really love Call of Cthulhu. It's a great system there. I mean, it's a great system overall, but...
And the tentacles, they love it.
I think there is some modules that Japanese developers wrote, no?
There's a number. Yeah, in addition to just translations, there are certainly some additional modules that are designed to support ways of storytelling that culturally are really important for Japanese players. It's partially translation, it's partially the way that the content can be presented. Also, in terms of the text, the characters need maybe some special features in order to, it's not just an issue of translation, but the way that the text is presented needs to be a little bit different for Japanese players. And so there's a lot of work that's gone into, the community over there doing things like that. And also the Spanish speaking community in terms of supporting translations and everything for Foundry. It's really amazing to see all that work being done. It's very it's kind of humbling.
Yes, and now in a few months back, it's been a translation of the D&D module to convert the metric system, no?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because it's a thing here that all of D&D is wrote in foots, I think, and feet, and in here it's meters.
Yeah, meters. That's right.
And it's a great thing that it's happening.
It's difficult. Yeah, it takes a lot. I mean, one thing to bear in mind is that, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about how this project started.
Yes, the first question was that, but
well, I'll tease it a little bit by saying that I hadn't anticipated being able to have this type of global opportunity, global reach to have the product work for people all over the world. When I first started it, I was so focused on just, could the proof of concept work? And it wasn't an issue of whether it was in English or in imperial feet versus metric meters. Like, those weren't questions that I really thought about at the time. But one of the things that I'm very grateful for is that early on in the alpha testing phases, there was a lot of strong feedback from the community, just really emphasizing the importance of making sure that the software can be localized and can be translated. And I think that was something that wasn't really part of my original design, but it was important that the community made that feedback really clearly early on, because it allowed us to really start prioritizing doing a better job with localization and making it so the software could be translated. And it's still not perfect. I'm sure everyone in your community will know it's still not perfect. We can still, it can still be better in that regard. But I think the fact that we were able to start prioritizing that, and I think that's allowed for it to catch on in so many different countries where otherwise it wouldn't have. So I think that was really important kind of turning point and milestone during the early development.
Okay, so the question, the obvious question is, how was Foundry born?
Yeah. Well, it's I guess it's maybe not such an exciting story, but it's exciting for me. But I have been a fan of playing role-playing games online for a long time. I mean, I love playing in person as well, but even for in-person games, I've always just been such a fan of having some technology at the table, whether it's
some mixture.
Yes, some mixture, right? Whether it's having a battle map that you can explore with digital tokens, or whether it's having music that I can integrate with what people are hearing, to help complement the role playing. So, anyways, I've always been a big fan of this, and so I have a long history with other products in the space, and I've been playing games on so many different platforms that I've really loved. So, I've had great experiences in the past playing on Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds and GM Forge, and tried Tabletop Simulator and the whole list, really. I've had just such good experiences with those softwares. But, I found myself in a position of wanting to start work on kind of a new side project just for fun. I kind of wanted to pick up a new project of something to work on. And I was thinking to myself, well, I really love these tools for playing, our weekly D&D game or our weekly Pathfinder game or whatever we were playing at the time. But, I kind of wanted to see if I could create something like that, but maybe do it in a slightly different way. And I got really inspired by the work that a developer did on this product called GM Forge. It really sort of deserved more credit than it ended up, retaining, I'm afraid. Just kind of, for a couple of reasons, didn't necessarily end up taking off the way it possibly could have. But it was a really clever piece of software that kind of had some aspects of design that inspired me with Foundry to try and do things in a similar way. And so I saw that and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I wonder if I could create something like that. And this was at a time when that software was kind of not really taking off. And I think the developer of it had sort of been deciding to maybe stop. But I really sort of believed in that vision. So I wanted to try and do it a different way. And I started working on Foundry, just spare time, nights, weekends, wherever I could spare some minutes. And, what I wanted to do was build a piece of software that just used a lot of sort of modern web technologies and was really simple for players to join. So, the way that Foundry works today, where one person runs the software and everyone else can connect just with a web browser, that was really important to me from the beginning. And so I was playing around with the technology that would make that possible. And I was finding that Well, the whole thing was just going much better and much easier than I thought it would. I thought it was going to be really impossible, like really, really difficult. I didn't expect it to be successful. And what I was finding is that there's just so many good components of the ecosystem, whether it's, being able to use something like, and this is a little bit technical maybe for the developer fans in your community, but being able to use, Node.js and Electron to make an application that people can use to self-host, being able to use WebSockets so that all of the different clients who are connected to Foundry can talk to each other really easily, being able to use WebGL and a library like Pixie to render the battle map and the tokens. And it just ultimately, like, the core ingredients of Foundry made it really easy to come up with the basic VTT. And that's not to say that it's been easy to make, because it hasn't been. It's been a huge, huge project. That's probably the most challenging thing I've ever worked on. But ultimately, like, it was easy to get started because of these amazing technologies that we could use. And so, that kind of really got the ball rolling. And it wasn't too long before I realized, I've really got something here, because I've been working on this for a couple months, but it's already to a point that the battle maps are working, the line of sight is working. We have doors that you can open and close, and we have, you can place lighting effects, and like, it all just came together like pretty quickly. And at that point, I kind of started to realize that, well, this is actually looking good enough that probably people other than myself are going to be interested in it. And so I ended up, as you may know, I got the project set up on Patreon, where I could use Patreon to post updates about my work and how it was coming along. And it let people kind of follow along and support the project, and then get access to help test the early versions of the software. And, that started really growing and doing really great. And so I was sort of taking it more and more seriously, and trying to find more and more time to work on it. Although I, only had so much time, because I wasn't doing it full time. I was working, my normal job at the time. That was by far my biggest time commitment. And so Foundry was always kind of a side project. But eventually, once we got the software ready to release for purchase, it had grown big enough that I really had to make a call about, am I going to focus on really doing this full time and making this my career, or is it just going to be kind of a small side thing? And so I committed to, to really going at Foundry big time, and I've been doing it full time for quite a while now. It's been amazing to see it continue and grow. But it all just started because I was kind of curious to see if it would be possible to make something like the other platforms that I'd been used to using. And it was sort of more just a side passion project to see what it would be like to try and create that. And so the consequence of that is a lot of the decisions that we've made over time have kind of been trying to reinforce the initial ideal of what I started out to create, and that I always wanted to create something that was not a subscription, just something that people can own and can use as a tool in their toolbox, something that's self-hosted, where you don't have to worry about some website going down or some service being unavailable. It's just, you can run it yourself, and you have all of the data on your desktop or laptop. I really wanted it to be something that would be accessible to people, where they just need to open up their browser in order to connect as a player. And so, having been able to achieve all those things, I'm just look back and I'm really proud of what we've created, but I'm also really excited about the future, because I think that gives us a great platform to keep building on. Like, we have so much that we can continue to do to make the software bigger and better and more immersive and better as a tool for storytelling. And so I'm just really proud of how things have come to this point, and excited for what we can keep building from here.
First, you're economist, right?
I am, yes. That is my formal training. It probably helps me only a little bit for Foundry, but maybe a little bit. I don't know.
I think was a big deal in seeing the subscribe. I don't know, and the subscribe model you you see in Netflix and whatever, everything it's month subscribe or something like that. Was hard to think, and this product it's first purchase and forever. Why?
Was it hard to?
The question is why? Why?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think it was really hard to make that decision because I think we all know how many people there are out there who love role-playing games. And so it's very tempting to think about, well, what if all of those people are subscribing to your product? Like, you can make a lot of money if you do that, you know? And that's true. That is true. But it's only true if you are successful enough to have all of those customers. And I think that for a really small project like our, Foundry, it ultimately is a small project. It's grown to be very successful. But for a small project like this one, it's much easier to fail to grow enough to be able to be successful than it is to fail because you have bad ideas or you don't care enough or you don't know how to code. There's a lot of people that care and have good ideas and know how to code. But what is hard is to get a product that gathers enough of a community to sustain itself. And I think that part of what went into my thinking early on was Foundry's got to be accessible to people. It's got to be something that can get new users involved without them feeling like they're making a huge commitment or taking on a huge risk. Because I knew that if it was going to be successful, I needed to establish a really dedicated group of users, not just because of wanting the platform to grow, but also because I wanted really early on for Foundry to be something that would be really open for module development. I knew I wanted developers in the community to be able to build things on top of the platform. And so much of the most amazing things that have been built for Foundry are built with the help and with the modules, with the help of what those community developers have created. And that was also playing into my thinking, is that, having the base platform be something that is a lower commitment for someone to buy it, and then they own it forever and their players don't have to purchase it. That is a good way to, really build a community that is invested in the product, because, you don't have to worry about, am I going to keep my subscription or am I using it enough? Once you have Foundry, you own it forever, and you don't have to worry about that. And that makes it easier for you to recommend it to your friend. It makes it easier for Nile, for you to recommend it to David and say, you've got to check this out. Like, I like this. I've got it. I think you would like it too. I think it's just easier to grow. And that was a big decision for me, because I wasn't necessarily trying to decide, like, how can Foundry make the most money that it can possibly make? It's been successful, and that's been really something that I'm very lucky to be able to say. But I just wanted it to be successful as a product, not so much successful as a business. And I think, that's been more important to me.
So you say that Foundry, it's a little project, but I think that Foundry now, I
disagree. It's huge.
It's
now.
huge.
It's huge. Yeah, it is huge,
huge
now. I mean, so it started small, though, of course.
And it's only you?
No. So now there's a whole team. I've got a team of 6, soon to be 7. Actually, we'll have 7 people.
The mighty 7.
Yeah. But it was originally just me, and I think at the time that was my thinking, is that I wanted to give it the most chance to grow that it could possibly have, and so that's why I ended up making the choices I did. I don't regret them. I'm very happy that things have gone the way they have, and I think in hindsight, I think it was good instincts to do that rather than to try and make a subscription.
So
Well, sorry, David. In Latam, you're like a hero because it's really hard to ask the subscribe model. And in the pandemics, $50, and I don't know, in the time for me it was insta buying. I see that and say, okay, this is for me and forever. No more Roll20. F word.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I think there's a lot of folks who've had that reaction, and I've been really grateful for that. I mean, I think I appreciate you saying it's heroic. I think that's very kind of you.
Because a lot of people trying to GMing so well, because they have the tools, the a virtual table. It's more easy to I don't know, schedule a game, and well, it's a lie, and you never get the players at the same time. But it's great. It's really great. You have that tool and so many people commitment, and with mods and updates and adventures.
It's freedom. It's like you feel the liberty to do whatever you want with that piece of software. So I think the success of Foundry it lies on that, in the freedom that you have with the product.
I think that's a great way to put it, and that freedom, that empowerment for the owner, for the game master to kind of have control over the tools that they use. I think that was always super important, and I think that's probably Foundry's strongest attribute.
For new players, the shy ones who come in late, let's see it and see this and play. And I think we are in a golden age of role playing, Critical Role and Dimension 20 and so long. Foundry, I found Foundry the opportunity for so many people to discover the role playing. I mean, you start with Dungeons and Dragons with the core system 5e. That you think that it's the most successful system right now?
I don't necessarily like the word successful, because I think successful implies some things about what it means for a system to be doing well on Foundry. In terms of the number of games that are using a certain game system, it is the largest for sure. D&D 5e is the largest. Although I think there's other systems on Foundry that, if I were to think about other attributes of success, I think have been incredibly successful. And I think, some that come to mind especially, although I could probably go and name 50 different systems in this list, but I think Warhammer Fantasy role-playing has been amazingly successful. It's one of the most beautiful systems. It has fantastic premium content from our partners at Cubicle 7. I think some of the work that Free League has done with Alien in particular, I never knew that Alien was such a popular and well-regarded role-playing game. I've always been a fan of the movies, but I knew there was a role-playing game. But it's been amazing to see how well the Alien system has done. And I think the Pathfinder 2 community is a really amazing success story on Foundry, because it, of all of our systems, has the most community development of any system like that. The way that system is built is by so many different contributors who are all working together. And I think another great example that I think of is the Dark Eye from Ulysses Spiel. It's a German system, although they do
playing the Chains of Saturday. Right.
Yeah, they're working on rolling out English translations as well. But they have so much amazing content, and they've really committed to Foundry as like the platform that they want to build more content on. And so I think that's not to say that only those systems are successful and others are not. But what I mean is that I think there's a number of game systems, not just 5e, that are all really successful and really thriving in Foundry VTT. And I think it's great to see all of those other systems have a chance to share what they can do and be discovered and let people easily try them out. I think the barrier to trying a new system on Foundry is pretty low. And I know I love the opportunity to go sit in on a game that someone else is running in a system that I haven't really tried yet. And I think that's really super cool. So, to answer your question, I guess D&D is so important. It's what most people are getting introduced to. It's where a lot of people start. It's what brings so many new participants to our hobby, largely because of how visible it is in the community. Like you mentioned, Critical Role. I think how many people have started playing role-playing games because of Critical Role? It's incredible. It's unbelievable to think about how many people have started just because of that. And so, yeah, it's super influential and super important. And I love D&D, so it will always have a very important place in my heart. But but yeah, no, I think there's so many systems in addition to that are being really, really successful on Foundry, and that's been great to see.
And it's good to know for the people who are discovering Foundry right now that if you want Cthulhu or Star Wars D6 or something like that, you can found it, or you can make it.
Yes.
You need just learn code or asking for someone, or paid. You can pay it.
Or with the sandbox, sandbox system
or
builder.
which is the Spanish sandbox. It's really great too.
Yeah, I should definitely give a shout out to Sandbox, because it is developed by a Spanish community member, and it is a really incredible way to sort of build your own game in Foundry from scratch.
Yes, it's amazing. I play a little with that system, and you can make whatever you want, and it's a really well maintained system.
I make some of my questions, David, so you can.
Yes. Okay.
For a while
so,
now.
When you see this thing, it's growing a lot. This thing that you created, it's growing a lot. Did it scare you? You feel scared with this, or you didn't feel that?
A little bit, yeah, certainly. I think there's been a couple of things that have been really scary. I think the decision to quit my job to work on it full time, that was really scary. I think that was a big leap that I thought a long time about and thought really hard about, and there were no guarantees that it would go well, and so I think that was sort of a scary thing. I think I find it. I really like to be involved a lot. I like to know what's going on and what people are talking about and how things are being used and what issues people are having. And it's long past the point where it's possible for me to follow along and to know all of the things that are happening. And so, that's been scary, is kind of getting used to being less in control of sort of every aspect of Foundry. It's much bigger than me. It's much bigger than the team. It's, it's a huge community of users and developers and everyone's doing, and creators, artists, everyone's doing this amazing work. And sometimes I just don't even know about it. And like, that's been an adjustment, and that's been kind of scary to know that it's much bigger than you, and that you don't really have, I still have a lot of control over it because we're still continuing to develop the main software. But ultimately, like, because of the business model, because of everything else, Foundry's out there now. It exists with me or without me. And so, it's become its own, it's kind of grown up and become its own thing. And that's a little scary. I also think that one thing that's a little bit scary for me is that as online communities get really big, it's difficult for everyone to stay as close, and it's difficult to have a community where everyone is welcoming and kind and really like good to each other. I think with really big communities, it sort of starts to get hard to keep that fundamental essence of goodness and kindness that makes a great community to start with. I think we've done a great job because we have so many amazing Discord moderators and volunteers, and I hope that whenever we're talking about the software, I hope we kind of do a good job of coming across as like honest and genuine and relatable, I guess, to people. And so I think that's gone well. But it is scary as the community gets really big to just know that it's hard to keep it kind of close to what it was in the beginning. It's impossible to do that. And so that's also a little bit scary. But yeah, for all of those reasons, it is scary. Yeah, it is scary for Foundry to be as big as it is. But beyond just being scary, it's unbelievably cool. It's really, really cool.
Yes.
So,
it's a challenge, and you enjoy it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. So, how do you see Foundry in the future? I mean, can you tell us new features that you and your team want to implement?
Yeah. So let me first talk, I guess, a little bit about like the long-term future.
Wow.
I think the vision for the product.
Your face, David. Your face. You say the long-term future. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the vision for the product is really the same. That much doesn't change. I think what we're trying to get to is a world where Foundry is a tool that every game master would love to use. Well, maybe not every game master, because I think it's a mistake to try and do everything for everybody, because there's too many different preferences. But that a lot of game masters would really love to use for their online or at the table games, that makes it so easy to create types of storytelling that you just can't do without it. So making it easy to have really incredible tactical maps that tokens can explore, making it really easy to have narrative experiences with theater of the mind and vignettes and all of the tools that you need for tracking your game and building your world, all of the conveniences for the GM to be able to keep focused on telling the story and engaging with players and thinking less about pulling levers and manipulating the system while in a way that distracts from actually role playing. So that's the vision, and that doesn't change. What does change over the next 5 years or so, I think, is that we're moving from a place where we've kind of we have lots of major features that need to be built in order for Foundry to like have a thing, to a world where we kind of have most of the building blocks already in place. The foundation of the software is already there. And we really want to focus on just making it easier to use, you know, more friendly, more intuitive, better performance, more beautiful. You know, all of the things that like take the recipe that we've already have and kind of improve upon it, rather than really like needing to build lots of like completely new or different things. There are still a number of features that like are on that list of like product features that I really feel I want to have in the software, and some of them still don't exist. So there's still several features that I think I really want us to do a better job and have built into the software. You know, some examples of those in the current V9 version that we're working on development right now, card support is one of those features for any games that use playing cards, either as a primary mechanic of the game system or as like a mini game inside a game system. You know, if you want your sort of like Taroka deck inside a D&D campaign, something like that. Any place that you want to use playing cards, we're adding. Yeah, we're adding support for that, and that's something that is really important. That's coming very soon. In the more long term, you know, something that there's many things that modules do a nice job with today, but it is part of my vision that some of those features would eventually be part of the core software. So, you know, when you have a house where, you know, you want your tokens to be able to explore the first floor and then go up the stairs and go to the second floor and continue that exploration from one area to the next area. You have to have modules to do that in Foundry right now.
Right now, multi-level, I know it's a multi-level token.
Yeah, there's a couple options for doing that sort of thing, but you know, multi-level is kind of one of the main ones. And you know, not to say that we want to replace that module or that we want to.
No, you want your own version.
But you know, we want to take that idea and do it in a way that we think it belongs in the core software. And so, just like at the very beginning, one of the first features we added is doors, where you know, you encounter a door, you can open the door and go through the door. But we still haven't added a staircase where you encounter a staircase and you can go up the staircase. So. You know, there's still a lot of things like that I want to see us add. You know, certainly with continuing to improve, I think the tools for immersion are really important. And so continuing to do better tools for lighting and vision and sound and weather effects, things like that. I want to see us do a lot more with those sorts of things. You know, so those are some things that I think are going to continue to be important. And then also a real focus on stability and performance, both of the software as well as of the API. So, you know, I want to make sure that Foundry stays a really good platform for software developers to spend their time building in. And so, you know, we want to make sure to keep improving the API, the sort of development framework for the software in a way that keeps all of our developers happy and gives them better tools to keep doing new and exciting things. And also another area of focus that we'll be working on, and I don't know exactly when, but I think pretty soon, creating some better and easier tools for content creators to make like game ready Foundry adventures. So, you know, we want to make it even easier for someone to build an adventure that can be packaged up and distributed. And then, you know, someone else can load in that adventure and set it up really easily so that it's ready to play, you know, with just a couple clicks, you're ready to start playing it. So
something like Molinet Cloud, something like that.
Yeah, so Molinet Cloud, maybe. There's some very cool tools there that do some things like that. I think there's also some like developer tools in the module community. There's a module called like Scene Packer that it's not really for users, but it's more for creators who want to use, to have a way to package lots of different content into a single thing that, you can get installed into Foundry. Moulinet does offer something like that. So there's a couple of different approaches, but we don't necessarily want there to be lots of different ways to do that. We think that's something where we can provide a little bit more structure in the core software and make it to where everyone can kind of use that same approach in a way that's easy to use and works really well. But yeah, these are some key things. We have so many ideas of things we want to do.
So some questions.
Yeah,
like,
go ahead.
I want for example, in the future, if I want to play HeroClix, or develop a card game, that you say you're ready for cards.
Yeah.
But what about the isometric view? A lot of people ask for that.
Yeah.
Because
that's
an XCOM game ish, game will be really, really cool for me.
I would love to have Foundry have built-in isometric support in the future. I think the reason that we haven't really prioritized that yet is because it's hard. It will be a lot of work to make. And I mean, I think you can look at Grape Juice, who's the community developer doing the isometric support, and really smart guy has put so much work into that module to make it work well. It's a huge feature, and so it's one that I would really love for Foundry to support. I think it would be super cool. I grew up playing isometric CRPGs, so like this was my bread and butter of everything that I grew to love about role playing on a computer was through isometric games. So this is something that I would love to have. I think it's just a matter of choosing the right time to do it and making sure to prioritize it relative to other features that would benefit everybody. Because isometric, it will, like, some people will really love it, but it is kind of a huge feature that only applies to some users.
Why I'm asking this? Because Foundry is a tool for role playing with the theater of mind, but it's a mixture of the table and a video game.
Yeah.
So people try to get mods and mods and mods for automatic, I don't know, special effects and the bubble chat and the RPG, classic RPG experience in the tabletop.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy because you have a video game, download a game in Steam and play it. Final Fantasy is there, but why I don't know. Why some people try to do in Foundry this? It's because they can, or
well, I think I think sometimes the challenge of seeing whether you can create something, I think, is part of it. But I do think that all kinds of different groups have different ways that they want to tell stories, and some game masters want to have combat encounters where there's 100 enemies, and that's so cool if you can do that. But I think we've all we've all experienced, a combat round in D&D when there's 100 enemies on the table. It's like you never, as the player, you never get to do anything. You're just waiting for an hour for your turn to come up again. And I think, for someone who wants to have battles that are that epic, that are that big, but they also want their players to remain at the center of the action, you need ways to speed up everything that happens outside of a player's turn. You need ways to do everything faster. You need ways to make, the story that you're telling go efficiently enough that the focus does stay on what your character's choices are and what your characters are doing. And so, there's I think good reasons why for some use cases and for some game masters, like, this is super important. I mean, I'm someone, when I DM a game, I love to just slow down and describe every swing of the sword, and I love just like sort of making up narrative, but it's not fast, and if I were to run a huge combat encounter, it would be so slow, and I think that there's just different types of groups, different types of game masters who want to tell stories in different ways. Having more options to customize how your game experience works, I think, is really important too.
Okay.
Very.
So, I mean, with all of this, with Foundry and I think that Foundry contributed a lot to not only developers but artists that want to sell their work. And how does that make you feel? I mean,
it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. It's one of my favorite things about Foundry is that we've created such good relationships with creators in the artistic community, whether it's map makers or token artists or musicians, storytellers.
It's amazing.
It's so cool, and those people who are creating that stuff, they're so talented and so creative. It's really great to have those sorts of relationships and be able to interact with so many amazing creators and have a platform where they can showcase their work and find fans that are willing to support them and to pay for that work and to sort of build each other up. It's really amazing, and we actually have a panel coming up at PAX Unplugged, which is a convention here in the States in December, where we're going to be talking about this in particular, about how the Foundry software and the artistic sort of creator community around it has been able to work together to support each other and to create sort of new ways to tell stories. Because I think, the Foundry software is giving those creators tools to do things in a new way that, hasn't been done to this point. Just today, for example, I saw Domil's wondrous works. Domil is a battle map artist. She makes really incredible battle maps that are often progressive in that they kind of change over the course of the encounter. So the actual landscape around you evolves. And they just announced a Foundry module designed specifically for Domil's maps that is, designed to help the game master run those phased battle maps. And so it's a perfect example of how how the Foundry platform, the technology, and artists and creators are able to kind of work together to come up with a new way to tell stories or to create memorable experiences that wouldn't be possible without each other's help. Wouldn't be possible to do that on our own.
Okay, so last question. You know, I don't want to have a lot of time of you, but we can be talking.
We can
I
spend
mean,
all the night.
all the night. But
I have a bit more time. If you have more than one, that's okay. If you have one, that's okay. Whatever is best.
I have two questions.
Perfect.
First question. You know, how do you see the Latin American scene in the future of role playing games, based in your experience / knowledge? You know.
Yeah. I don't know for sure, but I'm very excited, and I feel like it's been growing so fast. It seems like it's been growing maybe even faster than other communities, perhaps, as a sub community of role playing. I don't know if you share that opinion, but it seems like that to me, and I'm mostly basing that on sort of what I see on Twitch, what I see on Twitter, what I see on YouTube. It just seems like it's really exploding. And I think it makes a lot of sense to me that it would, because, well, you know, I guess I feel like Latin American cultures like have such rich traditions of storytelling. I think, you know, there's so many amazing stories, and those sorts of traditions of storytelling are kind of culturally very present in a number of Latin American countries, and
The mythology is huge.
yeah, and that's ultimately what role playing is sort of about. Is it's sort of a different type of storytelling, and so I think that it's really cool to see that kind of growth, and I think that it's going to be good for the community overall to have new voices and new types of stories to tell. You know, and I think so. I guess that's my thought. I'm excited to see that growth in both players, as well as hopefully I would love to see that kind of growth in terms of content publishers and creators, because I think that, you know, some writers and artists and storytellers from the Latin American community could tell some really cool adventures that are drawing on, you know, some of their cultural, like, folklore and, you know, sort of cultural mythology and stuff in a way that would be really interesting as a player for me to experience. So, you know, I'm really interested to see how that evolves. And I think it's great to see, you know, yes, Latin American, but also just all kinds of different sort of cultural groups around the world getting more involved in this hobby, which, to be honest, kind of historically has been sort of like American white guys telling stories about, you know, medieval knights and castles. And, you know, there's sort of been like a conventional model of like what D&D is like. And I think that's sort of broadening out, and you're starting to see lots of different ways to tell stories, lots of different types of stories that are being told. And I think that's pretty cool, because we all want to imagine new things that we haven't imagined before. And so anyways, those are some thoughts I have, but what do you think? What do you think is the growth and the future of Latin American role playing?
Well, I think that this event, for example, it's a really great way to expand this hobby around a region and around the world. That it's a way to say we are here, you know, and to be.
You know what carnival means? It's like it's a
tradition.
It's hard to explain.
Like a festival, like a
yes, but more. I don't know. It's not. It's a holiday, and it's a sensation, and it's a mood, and it's a a party, and it's so deep in your.
It's all of that.
I don't know. Mardi Gras. It's a festival, and it's not the same. It's not the same, and the night carnival means a lot for us.
Yeah.
In Uruguay, in Brazil, in Argentina, in Mexico, in what? It's a really a party. It's
Yeah,
a party.
it's a huge, beautiful celebration, I think, and having role playing be a part of that, I think, is a cool extension.
Okay, thank you, thank you for that. So, last question.
Sure.
And this is like an important one for me because I want to know your point of view of this. What are role playing games for you?
I love this question because it's big and hard. It's there's so much there to think about. I think for me it's about sort of engaging with my creativity in a way that challenges myself to, challenges me to think about problem solving, to think about working cooperatively with other people, to think about having moments that are fun and memorable, that are more personal than just reading a book or watching a movie, which are great experiences, great ways to consume media, great ways to have a wealth of feelings about what you're doing, but it's a way to have that personal connection with other people that is unpredictable and exciting and funny and hilarious, but also sometimes very poignant, sometimes very surprisingly touching, or it just kind of makes you, role-playing gives you a way to see the world through a pair of eyes that aren't your own. And I think it challenges you to think about the world differently. And we all are, we all have our own personal experiences in day-to-day life that sort of affects the way that we think about things, but challenging yourself to portray a character that's not yourself, that has a different perspective and a different worldview, I think it, I find that to be also rewarding. And so I'm not sure that it's necessarily any one thing, but for me personally, it's a mix of storytelling, because I love storytelling. It's a mix of problem solving, because the mechanical aspect of role-playing games is really appealing to me in that regard. I love trying to overcome a challenge, with other players, or present a challenge to players to see how it is that they think to try and solve it. But then also sort of the more human side of just having experiences that are unexpected and unpredictable from the viewpoint of role-playing a character that has a different worldview than I, Andrew, do. All of those things are parts that I really love about it.
Okay. Thank you very much for this interview.
Sure.
We are forever. Yes.
As we say here, I'm in a birthday. I'm living it. Estoy en un cumpleaños, la estoy reviviendo.
Yes, I'm in a birthday. Estoy en un cumpleaños, vendría a ser, es una forma de decir estoy como en I'm in a dream.
Perfecto.
I'm daydreaming.
Muchas gracias a Anile y David por esta conversación. Mucho gusto y gracias. Y buena suerte con Carnaval Rolero.
Muchas gracias, Andrew. Nos vemos y espero que podamos hablar nuevamente.
¿Y por qué no que nos dirija una mesa también?
Oh, that will be amazing. He said that you can
DM a table for us.
Yeah, maybe someday. That would be fun. That would be a good time.
Thank you very much.
All right, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Espero que podamos hablar nuevamente.